Michelle Obama goes to Princeton for free.
Yeah.
And has been in the ruling class her whole life.
Yeah.
And she's still lecturing you about how she's a victim of racism. Hillary Clinton, exact same thing. Goes to Wellesley, spends her entire life in the ruling class, and she's still whining about how she's discriminated against. Why are they doing that?
Yeah. And did you?
Tucker Carlson recently hosted a guest who made explosive claims about Michelle Obama's background. Allegations that she's lived a life of privilege while presenting herself as a constant victim of systemic bias. According to that heated discussion, there's more to her story than the mainstream media lets on, especially when it comes to how she financed her Ivy League education, expanded her personal fortune, and leveraged her public identity. But what's really true? And why did Tucker Carlson seem so stunned by his guest's revelations? In this video, we're going to break down those accusations and uncover the conflicting narratives around Michelle Obama's life. From Princeton rumors to lavish real estate, from massive book deals to a perpetually claimed sense of victimhood, does it all line up? Stay tuned, because these details may shift your perception of one of America's most celebrated and, as some argue, misunderstood public figures. 1. Elite beginnings at Princeton. Michelle Obama, then Michelle Robinson, famously claims she grew up on the south side of Chicago in a working-class family. But Tucker Carlson's guest insisted that her journey into Princeton might have been far more cushioned than many realize. Whether through scholarship programs, special grants, or backdoor connections, there's speculation that her tuition was heavily subsidized or even fully covered. By no means is earning admission to Princeton easy, especially for a young black woman in the early 1980s. Michelle has long said she felt like an outsider on campus, yet skeptics point out that her version of these dire struggles may not fully match the reality.
You ever see, they'll have like pictures of side by side, but it'll be like pictures of like Jimmy Carter's house and Obama's house.
Exactly.
And it totally represents something about the like corroding of our soul.
Some classmates recall her enjoying consistent support, both academically and financially. Is it possible that her portrayal of barely scraping by has been exaggerated over time? Or did she truly battle an unsupportive environment? Tucker Carlson's guest suggested the narrative of hardship might be a key part of her larger brand, one that resonates emotionally and bolsters her image as someone who overcame towering obstacles. What we do know is that Princeton was a stepping stone to Harvard Law School, which further boosted her credentials. But as critics love to note, her path from there into Chicago's top law circles seemed almost preordained, making them wonder if the struggle story glosses over substantial privileges. It's a debate that's never been fully settled, yet it's only one part of the larger controversy. 2. The fast track to national influence. In that same Tucker Carlson segment, the guest highlighted how Michelle's career trajectory soared once she married Barack Obama. Rather than just being a supportive spouse, she became a key component of a political brand. Barack's rapid rise to the presidency brought both Obamas into the orbit of high-powered donors and world leaders, extending their influence exponentially. By the time Barack took office, Michelle was recognized as the First Lady of Hope and Change. She advocated for military families, healthy school lunches, and educational reform, initiatives that fit the narrative of a relatable figure who cares about everyday Americans. Yet, behind the scenes, the Obamas consolidated relationships with influential figures in finance, tech, and entertainment. They attended private functions and cultivated alliances with Hollywood moguls and foreign dignitaries, ensuring that when they left the White House, they'd be poised for extraordinary financial opportunities. That's precisely what happened. The Obamas secured multi-million-dollar book deals and speaking engagements, leading some pundits, like Tucker Carlson and his recent guest, to wonder, how does that stratospheric wealth align with Michelle's repeated claims of living in fear or facing day-to-day discrimination? Is she truly that concerned about prejudice, or does this rhetoric keep her relatable in the eyes of the public? 3. The victimhood. Narrative and its lucrative payoffs. One of the boldest points raised on Tucker Carlson's show was the idea that Michelle Obama, despite her elite status, portrays herself as continually oppressed. She's spoken about worrying for her daughter's safety, fearful they could be profiled if they drive alone. She's mentioned feeling uneasy in grocery stores or public spaces, where she believes someone might judge her by her skin color before recognizing her global stature. Critics find this puzzling in light of her lifestyle, private security, personal staff, and the fact that she's part of a family with a net worth rivaling that of established American dynasties. Even so, there's no denying that identity politics can be enormously profitable. Convince the public you relate to their struggles, and they'll buy your memoirs, attend your $700,000 speeches, and stream your exclusive media deals. The key question that Tucker Carlson's guest posed was, is this sincerity or is it marketing? To be fair, Michelle isn't the only high-profile figure to profit from personal narratives of hardship. The Clintons, the Bidens, many political families cash in on their reputations once they leave office. The difference, critics say, lies in Michelle's consistent emphasis on feeling marginalized, even while living among the most privileged people on the planet. 4. Lavish mansions and the Martha's Vineyard paradox. This paradox becomes glaringly obvious when you see where the Obamas actually live. Tucker Carlson's guest pointed out their sprawling estates, particularly in Martha's Vineyard, a place known for sky-high property values and a predominantly white demographic.
Now, in a white neighborhood, you should be required to live in the hood if you're Barack Obama, and
if you're using that card,
use that card. The only reason you got elected was because of your race. You spent your entire 8 years inflaming race hate in our country, and then you go to Martha's Vineyard, the whitest zip code in the world? Not allowed. You're not allowed to do that.
If Michelle truly feared racial bias or violence, would she be drawn to a famously exclusive, arguably homogenous enclave? Some supporters argue she's earned her success and can live wherever she chooses. Yet the dissonance is hard to ignore. A self-proclaimed victim of racism settling in neighborhoods that signify the peak of American affluence. Moreover, the idea of living in danger while owning multi-million-dollar properties doesn't sit well with those who face genuine hardship and can't rely on personal security or comfortable buffers. Is it outright hypocrisy? Or is it just the natural progression of a public figure whose fortunes change dramatically? In either case, Tucker Carlson has repeatedly criticized the contrast between the Obamas' rhetoric on systemic oppression and their luxurious reality. This issue fired up his viewers. How can someone with near unlimited resources still insist on being perpetually threatened? 5. Follow the money, book deals, and speaking tours. According to the guest on Tucker Carlson's show, money is the real key to understanding the story. The Obamas skyrocketed from a relatively modest net worth to tens of millions after leaving the White House. While best-selling memoirs, Netflix deals, and speaking engagements definitely pay well, some suspect there may be more subtle forms of compensation at play. Corporate sponsors and large institutions paying hefty fees not just for the speech, but for the influence that comes with the Obama name. Michelle Obama commands top-dollar fees for appearances, and her events frequently attract high-powered executives and donors. It's not unusual for major companies to see these paid speeches as investments, forging relationships with influential figures who maintain political connections. Tucker Carlson's guest argued that this setup often leaves everyday Americans shut out of the equation. They can't afford those exclusive events. They simply see the polished speeches on TV or clips online, hearing Michelle's stories of ongoing prejudice without knowing the full financial backdrop. Add to this the charitable initiatives, nonprofits, and foundations that can double as PR boosters and tax shelters. While philanthropy can be genuine, critics point out it's also a strategic maneuver that keeps public figures in the limelight and connected to wealthy networks. Just ask the Clintons, whose foundation has been scrutinized for similar reasons. Are the Obamas following the same script? Tucker Carlson's guest implied that might be the case. 6th, media coverage versus independent scrutiny. Mainstream media coverage of Michelle Obama tends to focus on her achievements and inspirational qualities. She's often portrayed as a unifying cultural icon, praised for her fashion sense and her relatable anecdotes about motherhood. Yet alternative outlets, and Tucker Carlson's show is a prime example, present a different picture, dissecting her finances, property acquisitions, and repeated claims of victimhood. Carlson's own commentary typically underscores what he sees as hypocrisy, preaching about inequality while dwelling in gated mansions, or lamenting everyday racism while giving speeches to corporate giants for sums that working-class Americans could only imagine. Indeed, the tension between "I am oppressed" and "I can afford Martha's Vineyard" invites obvious criticism. Regardless of which side you take, the gulf between these two portrayals is enormous, and that gap is where most of the debate rages. 7. Rising skepticism and public debate. After Tucker Carlson's guest laid out these accusations, social media buzzed with both outrage and support. Some viewers were appalled at the idea Michelle Obama might be exploiting racial tensions for personal gain. Others felt the criticisms were overblown or rooted in partisan hostility. There's no denying she has a sizable base of admirers who believe that, no matter her wealth, she continues to face biases that money and fame can't fully erase. But for skeptics, the real sticking point is the discrepancy between her dire warnings about racism and her comfortable, guarded lifestyle. They argue that if she truly wanted to tackle systemic inequalities, she might invest in underprivileged communities, live closer to those impacted, or at least avoid purchasing homes in enclaves that symbolize the epitome of wealth. This disconnect, they say, reveals a carefully managed brand rather than a deeply felt conviction. In a world where image can be everything, Tucker Carlson's guest suggested Michelle Obama has mastered the art of staying relatable, enough to the public while enjoying the perks of high society. Whether or not that's fair criticism is for you to decide, but it certainly stokes the fires of online discourse. 8. Conclusion. Is it hype or hard truth? So, where does all of this leave us? Tucker Carlson's recent guest ignited a debate over Michelle Obama's authenticity, pointing to a chasm between her claims of ongoing adversity and her glamorous, well-funded reality. On the one hand, Michelle's supporters argue wealth doesn't eliminate discrimination, and her willingness to speak openly about racism is both brave and necessary. On the other hand, her critics see a clear contradiction, championing the fight against injustice from the comfort of gated mansions and private security. Ultimately, Michelle Obama's story is layered. She undoubtedly broke barriers, going from the South Side of Chicago to Princeton, Harvard Law, and the White House. But the narrative of non-stop struggle contrasts sharply with the privileges she and her family now enjoy. The controversy hinges on whether this gap reveals hypocrisy or just underscores the complex reality that even successful, wealthy individuals can face prejudice. Perhaps it's a mix of both. Still, questions linger. Is Michelle Obama using victimhood as a strategic brand? Or does she genuinely believe her experiences reflect a harsh social truth that even millions of dollars can't erase? Tucker Carlson's show has propelled these conversations back into the spotlight, right where they'll likely remain, given the Obamas' enduring fame and influence. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Are these critiques valid, or do you think people are misreading Michelle Obama's intentions? If you found this video eye-opening, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories behind the headlines. Because if we don't ask the tough questions, who will? Disclaimer: this video is based on publicly available information, rumors, and personal opinions. Viewers are encouraged to verify facts independently and draw their own conclusions.